Well, we have another question that has to do with entities, specifically LLCs again. This is from Barry in Waterford. And Barry simply asks, how do I make my real estate business an LLC? And that's it.
So it's really interesting. I just want to tell you, we have two questions that are pretty straightforward. It's unusual. We have new summer law clerks, and I already see who's writing these, who's pulling these up. I have a new law clerk who's very, straightforward and just goes right for the gorgle, like right there, doesn't mess around. And I know she's the one who picked those out. So, okay, what was the question?
How do I make my real estate business an LLC?
Well, you have to, that's a great segue from the other question. You do have to file your corporation with the state of Michigan. And that's actually relatively simple. You can go online and do that. That's not really where the attorneys, like legally, we come in. I mean, we do form corporations all the time. That's not the hard part. The hard part is to create an operating agreement for the client that's suitable to their needs. Okay. And when we have multi-member limited liability companies, so if we have more than one person that's owning the corporation, it's even more involved, because then the operating agreement, which is created for this sole purpose of regulating really the relationships between the individuals who are members of the LLC, that operating agreement dictates how the parties relate to each other, right? And what are the rules of the road per se on conducting business as a limited liability company. So in the earlier question, whoever's watching, if you go to the first question, which deals with why have an LLC, now what you want to know is, well, the limited liability company is pretty much regulated on a day-to-day operation. It's like an operating manual is your operating agreement. If you don't want the corporate veil to be pierced, you have an operating agreement and you comply with it. You look to it on a regular basis when there's an issue or a problem or a concern or an addition. You might be buying property. You might be adding a new member to the company. You might be dissolving the company. You might be dismissing a member. All these different things you have to do in compliance with the operating agreement. And if you don't, I can tell you that we're in quite a bit of litigation when it comes to partners in real estate ventures that don't have the proper operating agreement. Now they want to split ways, and they either haven't had an operating agreement or they're not complying with the terms of the operating agreement. And that's what controls. So it's really easy to just file for a corporation. It's then harder to do the mechanics of having and maintaining the appearance as well as the day-to-day operation of your corporation. Got it?
Right. The steps that I followed, just to come at it from my perspective.
Sure.
So actually setting up a real estate LLC, so real estate investing specifically. So my aunt is a CPA, and I just asked her to help me file articles of organization, I think is what it was called. Go to the state of Michigan, and I know that there are some people that do that themselves, and but she did it for me, and that at the time that we did it, 2018, I believe that was $50.
Right.
But then we started in our endeavors, and then I learned more. And actually one of the first seminars, real estate investing seminars that I ever went to, where I met David, you was giving a talk on all sorts of different things, and then you were speaking on just because you have an LLC on record with the state doesn't mean that you actually are a business, that you actually are operating as a business, giving you protections, etc. So you were talking about operating agreement. And so then, just disclaimer, I reached out to David and he wrote the operating agreement for me. And so those were the different steps that we followed, and just had a conversation, about, well, what are your expectations? What are your roles? Who's even involved?
Right.
Finances up front, etc. So that's really just to answer Barry's question from the perspective from the perspective of someone who a few years ago was Googling, how do I make my real estate business an LLC?
Right.
Those are the two steps, Barry. You file with the state and then you go speak to a real estate investing attorney, or I don't know if it should be a real estate attorney. I guess.
Well, we do a lot of, because we do a lot of real estate, we also do a lot of corporate formation for real estate investors and people who are engaging in real estate. So it's kind of par for the course. I do want to caution those people who are watching, you know, to heed what Blair is saying, because yes, you can go online and get a very basic document, which would be the articles, or, you know, there might be something online with LegalZoom. Go right ahead. But here's the problem. You know, every state's different, number one, and more importantly, especially with the fast pace of real estate these days, and also with just how people maintain their relationships. Even when you have a husband and wife, I do a lot of corporate formation work for husband and wife investors, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're couples, they're investing in property as a couple. What happens when they get divorced or they separate? The divorce, well, the judgment of divorce is one thing, but this is an asset of the couple. The operating agreement is the, you know, the reflection of the relationship, what they've agreed to and how they're running their LLC. And if you don't have something in writing related to the operating agreement, you may have a divorce attorney, and I don't know, I know enough about divorce just as it relates to real estate, but the divorce attorney may say, well, you don't have anything, so it's a 50-50 shot. Both of you get 50-50. But what if one party, even though you're husband and wife, one party has contributed 80% to the corporation,
Mm-hmm.
and the other party only did 20%? Why then would you split 50-50? The reason, you know, somebody can overcome that assumption is by saying, well, wait a minute, I have it in writing. The operating agreement says if there's a dissolution or a falling out between the members, this is how it gets split up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real agreement, not what the court comes in and says, well, no, you have to agree to something else. So that's also very important. And that goes, you know, that goes just with, you know, general business partners should have that. And we have a lot of, I mean, we're so busy, we're very blessed, but we have so many people that call who are, for lack of a better term, being jilted by their partner when it comes to doing business. You know, I have a book I wrote called Shady, and it deals with how to do business with friends and relatives, or friends or relatives, right? And it speaks to these items, why you need to have these contracts. And that's really what an operating agreement is a contract between the parties. That's it.
Okay.
So we won't belabor the point, but in general, yes, you have to have an operating agreement. That's the easiest thing, is just to file. Now everything else thereafter is act like a corporation.
All right. Good advice.
Mm.
Okay.